There's a small village in the northern United States called Red Hollow. If you tried to find it on a map, you probably wouldn't. It's barely a speck of civilization, tucked away in the middle of nowhere. The population doesn't even reach 200. There's just one elementary school, a tiny general store, and a gas station that frequently runs out of gas. It feels like a place time forgot. There are no attractions, no local legends of buried treasure or famous births, just quiet, snow-covered roads and people who keep their heads down. But there is one thing that sets Red Hollow apart, one thing the locals will never joke about. At the very edge of the village, beyond where the power lines end, there's a narrow dirt path flanked by 2 towering pine trees. It's easy to miss. You can't drive a car down it. You have to walk. And if you follow that trail far enough, about 10 minutes in, you'll come across a building. It isn't large or extravagant. From a distance, it could be mistaken for an old storage barn or a community hall. But up close, you'll see the faded cross above the door, crooked and rusted, and the unmistakable shape of arched windows long since shattered. The building is a church, an old, white, wooden church. The paint is cracked and peeling, weathered down by decades of rain and wind. The lower walls are coated with dark green moss, and the surrounding trees cast heavy shadows over the place. Even during daylight, the front doors are still shut tight. The hinges are rusted, and a thick iron lock hangs from the handles, though no one remembers who put it there. Through the broken windows, if you're brave enough to look, you'll see the pews inside, still lined up in neat rows, though covered in dust and cobwebs. The altar is intact, though barely, and a Bible sits open on its surface, pages warped and brittle with age. It looks like time stopped inside the church, as if no one had touched a single thing since the day it was abandoned. The people of Red Hollow call it the Screaming Church. It hasn't been used for worship since 1973. No Sunday services, no choir practices, no weddings. But they never tore it down. They never repurposed the land. They just left it there, like they were afraid to disturb it. Because every night, exactly at midnight, a scream echoes from within that church. A single, drawn-out scream. Not like a yell of anger or a scream of surprise. It's a scream of pain. A scream so sharp, so high-pitched and full of suffering, it sounds inhuman. And it happens every night, without fail. At the stroke of 12, no one knows where the scream comes from. No one can say who makes it. People have tried to find out. Some say it's the wind, or a trick of acoustics. Others claim it's the cry of some dying animal that comes back to haunt the building again and again. But those are just theories. No one has ever seen anything inside. No living person, anyway. The police came once, after a group of teenagers dared each other to spend the night inside, and ended up screaming their way back to the village before dawn. The report said there was nothing unusual. No signs of forced entry. No animals, no vagrants hiding out. But one officer, a man named Carter, fainted on the church steps, just collapsed. Later, in the hospital, he said, something screamed directly into my ear, and I was alone. His partner said they were standing side by side. He never heard anything. That church was once the spiritual heart of Red Hollow. Back in the 1950s and 60s, the whole village would gather there every week. It wasn't a rich community, but it was tight-knit. The church brought everyone together. Pastor Elias was the last man to lead the congregation. He was a quiet, soft-spoken man with silver hair and a kind smile. But some said there was a strange intensity behind his eyes, like he knew more than he ever said out loud. He believed in evil, not just in the philosophical sense, but in the real, physical kind. He spoke often of temptation, possession, and darkness that moved through the world. He believed that the devil could take hold of a soul if you weren't careful. Some say he performed rituals, not the ones listed in any prayer book. The kind of rites whispered about in secret corners of theology. Harsh, punishing rituals, ones that left people changed. In 1973, without warning or explanation, the church shut its doors. A notice was posted on the community board. All services will now be held at the new church on Birch Road. No reason, no goodbye sermon, no farewell gathering. Pastor Elias was never seen again, and no one asked questions. People moved on like they were told to. But that very same week, the screaming began. The first to report it was an old man who lived near the edge of the forest. He was walking home from a late-night fishing trip when he heard what he thought was a coyote. But as he got closer, he realized it was something else entirely. A human scream, long and broken, full of sorrow and rage, and something he couldn't describe. He never walked that way again. Others began to hear it too. At first, they tried to rationalize it. An echo, an owl, maybe some teenagers playing pranks. But it kept happening. Every night. Always at midnight. And always from inside the church. A few boys from the local high school decided to investigate. They brought flashlights, a camcorder, and nerves of steel. They entered just before midnight and sat in the back pew, whispering and laughing. But the laughter didn't last long. The air inside was cold, even though it was summer. Their candles wouldn't stay lit. The wooden floor groaned under their feet, even when they stood still. And the church's old clock, the one above the altar, had both hands stuck at 12, midnight, frozen in time. At exactly 12 o'clock, the scream began. It erupted through the silence like a blade through flesh. One of the boys fell backward, hitting his head. Another vomited on the floor. They ran, left the camera, left their gear. They didn't stop until they were back in town. The next day, they returned in daylight to retrieve the camera. The battery was full, but the video file, corrupted, blank, 0 seconds. Since then, stories of the screaming church have spread far beyond Red Hollow. Urban explorers, ghost hunters, even influencers chasing viral content have come from far and wide. Some try to stay the night, some only make it to the front steps. Almost all of them leave changed. A few never speak of it again. One man was found wandering the woods 2 days later, barefoot and muttering about voices in the walls. A couple from Chicago filed for divorce a week after visiting, claiming they both had the same nightmare every night. A wooden chair, dripping blood from the ceiling, and someone crying behind the pulpit. Everyone who hears the scream describes it the same way. It's not just loud, it's full of something, a raw, ancient suffering. And sometimes, if you stand close enough, it says your name, whispers it, like it knows you, like it's been waiting. No one can prove anything. No videos, no recordings, no physical evidence. But the people who live in Red Hollow know. They know what that place is, or at least, what it has become. They don't go near it. They don't talk about it, and they certainly don't try to tear it down, because some things are better left untouched. Some doors shouldn't be opened, and some screams, the ones that come at midnight from deep within old wooden walls, are better left unanswered. There's something else people whisper about, though they never say it loud. They say if you listen closely, you can hear the scream change, like it's evolving, like it's learning. Some say it sounds angrier now. Some say it laughs before it cries. Others say the scream isn't alone anymore. That sometimes they hear two voices, one screaming, one whispering, like a call and answer, a conversation in agony. There was a night last winter when the scream didn't come. Midnight passed, and the village held its breath. Nothing, silence. People didn't sleep that night. They stayed up, staring at their walls, waiting for something worse. At 12:47 a.m., the power went out. Not just a flicker, total blackout. Phones died, clocks stopped, and then, from every direction, came the scream. Not just from the church, from the woods, from the fields, from under the floorboards. It lasted less than a minute, But when the power returned, all the clocks read 12 o'clock. After that, no one doubted anymore. No more theories, no more ibrabado. The town met in secret. They posted more signs. They built a new fence. But the church still stands, white, silent, waiting. And every night, as the clock nears 12, Red Hollow holds its breath again. Because what used to be one scream now sounds like many. The local historian, Martha Crane, once tried to dig into old archives to see if there were any records tied to the land before the church was built. She spent months in the basement of the town hall, sifting through old documents, faded newspaper clippings, and land deeds. She found that the land the church stood on used to be part of a larger estate, a family estate, long abandoned after a tragic fire in 1902 that claimed the lives of a mother and 3 children. The father, it was said, went mad and disappeared into the forest. The estate was razed and forgotten until the church was constructed 20 years later. No one made the connection then. No one dared talk about it now. Martha tried to publish her findings in the local newsletter. The issue never went out. She was found unconscious in her study, her notes torn to shreds. When she recovered, she couldn't remember what happened, only that she had a dream of fire, and children's laughter turning to screams, and a man with no eyes standing at the altar. Since then, no one tried to research the church again. The village librarian locked up the historical section. The town council stopped taking questions about it. The stories became folklore, warnings told in whispers, but the screams never stopped. Sometimes, people say they see lights in the windows, flickering candles, shadows that move when no one should be inside. Others hear footsteps behind them if they walk near the path after dark, only to turn and find nothing there. One teenager said she saw someone standing in the bell tower, long after midnight, someone wearing a robe, with a face too blurred to describe. Whatever it is inside that church, it isn't resting, it isn't passive, and it remembers every person who's come too close, every question asked, every attempt to forget. And when midnight comes again, so does the scream, always.